I'm sitting outside. I just finished setting up the daycare. And after a very, very, very long and trying weekend, I wake up and my daughter is always the first thing on my mind. And right behind that, I started thinking about my mom. And, I had to, I'm sitting in my mom's yard and I had to do what I call my mini grief walk. My daughter passed away in 2021. I used to come out in my mother's yard early in the morning and walk through the yard. And my mom said she was watching, her bedroom window was actually behind me. And she said one time that she looked out here and it just looked so peaceful, sitting out here. And she purposely, the area that I was just showing, the green ball over there, she could see that that was her vantage point from her window. And she purposely made that section. Her whole garden is beautiful, the whole yard. She did all her landscaping. But she purposely made that section over there beautiful. She said because she could see it from her window. And it was something that she did for herself. And I was just watching a mother on YouTube that's lost her child. Usually I try to distract myself and I watch YouTube videos. But this morning, the grief was just beyond distraction, as it usually is. Usually I can, I wouldn't say push it down because I don't never not feel it. But usually I can make things slow down enough for me to catch my breath. And after watching her video, it reminded me of when I read a book by a grieving mother. And I realized that it's important to tell our stories. Because when people talk about grief, because I tell people in a minute, I'm not an inspirational griever, right? I'm not trying to inspire you. I'm not trying to craft a message that leaves you with hope. I don't even know, what it is about having a message other than I know that there's things I feel like I need to say when it comes to grief and losing a child. I may have things to even say to somebody who's lost their mother because I've lost my mom too. And, but it seems like the health and wellness industry has this culture in a chokehold. It's like people almost require that you put a romantic spin on what you're going through and what's happening in your life. And, I know we have these different rules about what should and should happen on social media. I know people say, oh, people get on social media crying. But that doesn't even, I can't go there. I've tried so many times to be concise, explain certain things, and not one of those videos has made it to YouTube. But the video that I saw helped me, and I hope that at some point I can help somebody else. Because this world will gaslight you and have you thinking that you were supposed to be in a certain place in a year, in 5 years, and 10 years and 20 years. But I can tell you that there's nothing like losing your child. There is no grief, excuse me, like losing your child. When my daughter passed away, I could feel a piece of my life. I could feel my life draining from me. And I told people that I could literally feel myself going insane. There was a moment where I was just like, I lost my mind. And I just pushed through it. I'm not going to say I pushed through it, but it was like I felt it was happening. But then there were things to do. And I remember as I was planning her funeral and gathering things together and gathering information, I remember saying, these are the last things that I get to do for her. And you can't tell me, and when I say you can't tell me, I mean you can't tell me, her mother, a mother who's lost a child, you can't tell me how I should do anything in my life after that. If I am not causing harm to others, basically, when you lose your child, it feels like there's no rules. There's no rules in this world. There's nothing that can't be broken. There's nothing that can't be destroyed. That's how you feel. You feel like that I don't want to sound cliche when I say nothing else matters, but literally everything that you thought you knew falls away. And the thing is, she passed away in 2021, and we're still in the top part of 2023. And for some people, they'll look at those dates and they say, oh, to them it seems like a long time. But to me, it always feels like it was just yesterday. Every morning, it feels like it's just yesterday until the day really starts. And somebody will remind you, somebody with an expectation of you reminds you that it's been longer than it feels, longer than you think. But all the rules all the texts, all the manuals, all the studies about grief are from people looking at grief from the outside in, right? They're on the outside of it. They're talking to people who are grieving. They're asking questions of people who are grieving. But a lot of this information is not coming directly from people who are grieving. And when you look at the literature that's out there, the resources that are out there, there's the voices of grieving parents, they're not heard. People are actually reluctant. I saw a post on social media on a grief page where they were talking about the needs of people in their 30s after they've been caretakers and the parent passes. And one of the people's comments on it, and because of an interaction that I had with her before, I know that she's a quote-unquote grief educator. She has lost people in her life, because she did share that as well. But she said she doesn't like how they're separating grief now, and because of one universal thing is death. It happens to everybody. It happens. And I'm just like, if what you did helped you, that's great. But you can't deny me my experience, and you can't silence my voice because you believe that all grief is the same. As someone who lost a child and then lost their mother shortly after, I know the difference. I can feel the difference. I live the difference. And it's those messages that you hear constantly. Those are the prevailing voices out there that makes you feel like, as a grieving parent, a grieving mother, that your feelings, your experience, and what you're going through is invalid. and it's valid. I will never not grieve my daughter. I carried her, and people always say, oh, it's like, you're a part of me. Our children, my daughter, other people's children, moms, our children are a part of us. Dads, they're a part of you. They are really, truly they were living parts of us walking around on this earth. I carried my daughter for 9 months, and she was a part of me. She still is a part of me. And I'm not gonna let anybody tell me how to grieve or decide for me that it's been too long, or decide for me that I need to move on, because there is no moving on, or decide for me that how I'm grieving is wrong. When she passed, all the rules did too. And I was one of those parents, Generation X, Gen X parent. And when it came to my daughter, I lived for her. Like, people say I live for my children. I lived for my daughter. It wasn't just something I said. That was our everyday life. My last words to my daughter was, I love you. Her last words to me were, I love you too. And that's how we lived our lives. But nobody gets to erase that. Nobody gets to tell me that I won't miss that for the rest of my life, and that I can't talk about it for the rest of my life. No one gets to tell me that I can only speak and share her picture on bereaved Mother's Day, and that I'm not a mother that should be celebrated on Mother's Day. Like, nobody gets to decide my experience or the experience of other grieving mothers. And one of the things that has helped me is hearing the experiences of other mothers. It validates what I know. It validates the things I won't argue. I know that this is a lifetime thing. I've heard the voices of mothers who've lost their children, and it's been 5 years. It's been 10 years. It's been 25 years. And it's been consistent. And I needed to hear that. I needed to know, because I was walking around here thinking I was crazy, because a year out, I was still in a state of shock and disbelief. And to be honest, I don't think the shock will ever truly go away, quote unquote go away, because how can I truly live on this earth? Excuse me. How can I truly exist and live and continue forward with the full knowledge of what happened in my life? My brain is smarter than I am. Our brains, our minds are smarter. Like, that complex system up there knows that we can't handle the full weight. So a part of me, I'm going to speak for myself.